everyone. Welcome to Decked. My name's Tyler, and with me today is my friend Ray.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. Everybody look at my lovely, lovely playmat that everybody complains about who plays against me.
Yes, that is Ray sitting on the left in the picture you're seeing. On Decked, we play card games for fun, and then we come back and talk about them afterwards. On the left, you'll see Ray playing a deck he's going to tell us about in a second, and on the right, you see Rod in the gray sleeves, who's playing a Miskatonic Explorer deck, that you will have already seen in action in episode 12, because this episode 12 and episode 13 are from a tournament that was held at Black Moon Games a couple weeks ago. I dragged the camera down along, and we recorded a couple matches just to sort of change up the venue and get some more people in the mix. Ray, why don't you tell us about your deck that you're playing today?
So I'm crazy, and when I go into tournaments, I never plan on actually winning them, apparently, because I almost always play completely new decks that are completely untested. And that is what I have done in this case. I created a deck that probably could do a lot of things against a lot of different decks, but not enough against any of them to actually bother them.
The Jack of all trades.
Yes, the Jack of all trades deck. Which might be a good name for this deck, since I haven't actually named this deck yet.
Yes, we need a name for this deck.
We do need a name for this deck. Jack of all trades might just cover it. Might come up with something better by the end of this. I did mulligan in my first hand. The idea behind this deck is to get out some ancient ones relatively fast. As you can see, I just resourced a veteran monster hunter, who is a transient resource for agency. There we go. This deck is a little bit of agency, a little bit of Silver Twilight, and a little bit of neutral. It's honestly probably pretty close to a 33-33-33 split.
That's a lot of neutral.
It is a lot of neutral, but it's a lot of ancient ones is what it is.
I see.
Some support. So
what? Let's start with the beginning. Why did you suddenly switch up the deck?
Because I wanted to play something new.
Okay. And that's why you went for the cards that were fresh from the agency box?
I did go with cards that were fresh from the agency box. I also, prior to the tournament, purchased the Terror in Venice expansion, so that I would have some key cards for this. And as I have also recently purchased the Dreamlands reprints, I wanted to use some of the cards from that. The key cards that I really wanted to use, I was kind of going for a resource control aspect is what I was shooting for. So I've got Nyarlathotep in there.
Sorry, I just want to point out Rod doesn't draw a card for the historian.
Good job, Rod. I have the new Conspiracy from the agency box set.
One of many.
Yes, one of many, but the one that actually messes with things in the resources, which is called the Blackwood Initiative. And what that does is it allows you to, if you want to resource a card, you have to discard a card first.
Right. So you're taxing the ability to play the decision to resource a card.
Correct.
Nyarlathotep may cause that decision to be random.
Right.
And then, are there any other resourcing effects that we should watch out for?
I also have, not small price to pay, Torch the Joint.
Torch the Joint.
To get rid of select cards that I need to. Right now I've played Carl Stanford. Carl Stanford is in this deck because, well, he's a pretty good character, but also because I was worried about running into dormant cards, and Carl Stanford prevents dormant cards from being played for free because that is a price reduction, and that's his main ability. His other ability is to recycle spell and or ritual cards, and as I have no spell and or ritual cards in this deck for him to cycle, that aspect of it is not going to come into play.
Is that something you would change in the future?
Possibly. I had looked at some of the ritual and spell cards I had available to me from my card pool, and nothing was really working for it in this deck. This deck does need some tweaks, as it didn't do as well as I hoped it would in this tournament, but I was still happy with how it played.
And, I mean, dropping Carl Stanford on the first turn is pretty awesome.
Dropping Carl Stanford on the first turn is pretty awesome. This is very true. The one thing about the Veteran Monster Hunter, I actually have 3 different transient cards in the deck. I have the Veteran Monster Hunter, the Local Sheriff, and the Descendant of Eben. The Veteran Monster Hunter is the only one that I cannot get back out.
Oh, interesting.
From some sort of effect.
There's no straight up recursion. It's just the Descendant and the Sheriff's built-in recursion.
Right. The Descendant and the Sheriff have the built-in recursion. There's no other recursion in the deck.
That's something. I guess.
Well, there is a little bit. Technically, I have Satchel of the Void to prevent against decking strategies, but it's not a reliable getting it back into my hand.
Yeah. Is it where you just put the top stuff in the discard back in the deck?
It's pay X and choose X cards, I do believe.
Oh, so you do get to choose.
I think so. I just resourced one. It was actually one of my opening resources was that because I was playing against. I knew what I was playing against, so.
Right, and that puts it back in the deck. You still have to.
Right, it shuffles the cards back into the deck.
So Rod's throwing the Chess Prodigy and the Arctic Ethnologist. Yeah, story.
Yep, it's pay X and exhaust the satchel to shuffle X cards from your discard pile into your deck.
Okay. So by itself, it's really good just for decking and the possibility of getting the card back.
Right.
You really need some search effects to
right
beef up its utility.
But it was mainly put in there as a cheap Silver Twilight resource card if I needed to, or if I ran into somebody playing a Yithian deck, then I could hold off the eventual decking maybe a turn or two to win the game.
Now, I just want to point out our meta is 3 people.
Our meta is 3 people, but two of those people are you, basically. So
How do I count as 2?
well, I wasn't sure. I mean, our meta is 3 people, and I know what Rod runs for decks for the most part, but there was a 3rd wild card that we were playing in this particular thing, and I didn't know whose deck they might be using.
Right.
And one of your decks could have been a deck, and...
Yep. I mean, I've certainly expressed my appreciation of the Yithians in the past and my dismay that they were neutered so heavily. But I think that was mainly to do with disappointment in game design choices and the sloppiness that came to light when the top tier players really took a look at them.
Right. It was a local sheriff that just went down on that resource right there.
So we're going to be calling you Ray 3 Cost for this entire game.
Yeah, there's a lot of 3 cost, as most people know who play Call of Cthulhu a lot. 3 spot is the sweet spot for Silver Twilight as far as characters are concerned.
Absolutely.
There's the local sheriff, and that is really shiny cards. I think that was August Lundquist, who is a new card from the Agency box set. August Lundquist he's got willpower, and he's fated 3, and he can not have relic cards attached to him. This is to keep Kopesh craziness going from him, but you can, as a disrupt, if he would be wounded, you can choose and wound another character, then put a success token on him. So
if August would be wounded, or any of your characters?
If August would be wounded.
I see.
I also played out a Guardian of the Dawn here.
Love the Guardian.
I don't have anything that's making it day currently, but...
right, but she's a 1-drop with investigation.
Right, she's a 1-drop with investigation, and my other resource that I used was to return the local sheriff to my hand, because his ability is if you pay 1, you can return him to your hand if he entered your discard pile this phase. That includes coming from the being transient resourced, so... Which is... Somebody pointed out when I was playing this deck, kind of feels broken because it's basically I'm just using 2 resources to get a free resource every turn, but I'm using 2 resources to do that. So
right, it's like playing a Plague Stun. You're using up 2 domains to get a single effect.
Exactly. Well, that's Ultima Thule.
That is Ultima Thule. So to recap Rod's board, he's got the Arctic Ethnologist, he's got the Chess Prodigy, he's got a College Prospect, an Alternative Historian, and that is Cookie.
That is Cookie.
And Cookie, we have determined, is that when an Explorer enters play and the opponent has more cards in hand, the person playing Cookie can draw cards or pull cards from the discard pile?
Play Cookie, draws cards, then discards 2 cards.
Right.
If the opponent has
Draw
more
3,
cards.
discard 2.
Right.
So you're filtering your hand, basically. And continues to keep going after that story.
He does.
I kind of want to say is the Heart of the Labyrinth again.
Which is shiny, light, shininess.
Yeah.
They're very well maybe Heart of the Labyrinth, actually. I can kind of see the picture through the shiny.
This is the nature of setting up a camera under fluorescence when you can't rotate the table.
Yes, and, when we insist on putting the story cards in sleeves. We're very protective of our cards, okay?
What are 12 sleeves when you've just bought a gross?
Exactly.
A gross of packs.
A gross of packs of sleeves, that's true. That's probably what you did have to buy, isn't it?
I really don't want to think about how many sleeves I've bought for this game. I actually ran out of sleeves the other day. When I picked up my Dreamlands cards, I started sleeving them. I'm like, oh, what happened? I've never run out of sleeves before.
I'm actually sitting on about half of a Dreamlands pack that isn't sleeved right now because I keep not quite buying enough sleeves to cover everything. All right, so I'm defending with August Lundquist.
Because August, now when he wounds somebody, is that in place of him taking a wound?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's
he doesn't
invulnerable.
Yeah, he doesn't take the wound, puts a fate counter on him, or a success counter on himself, because he's fated 3, and then he can wound any other character. That includes your opponent's characters, which is the fun part of it. I do believe he chess mastered the combat, I'm presuming.
Which would mean he'd still won it.
Yeah, he would have still won it. I don't know.
Does August have investigation? Maybe you bumped?
August does have investigation. He has 1 arcane, 1 combat, 1 investigation.
Cookie's got an investigation.
Right.
I think the ethnologist would have one.
The chess master definitely has one. I don't know.
It's a mystery. I don't think I'm going to be able to help with this one. I've only got like half of Rod's cards here.
Yeah, I don't know. Unless we actually just bounced on combat, which is entirely possible. Cookie had combat, the chess prodigy doesn't, and the ethnologist
gains one when there's an explorer, when there's only Miskatonic cards in play.
Okay.
He gains something when there's only Miskatonic cards.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he didn't choose that. Maybe he chose arcane or something like that to count. So I lost my Guardian of the Dawn for some reason.
What could have taken the Guardian away? And where did it go? Because it's not in the discard.
He must have returned it to my hand. It's the only thing I can think of. I just played a Hermetic Seal.
Which goes well with the Guardian.
Which goes well with the Guardian, right? Makes it day and...
Oh, because he won the story and it was Heart of the Labyrinth.
Oh, yep, it was Heart of the Labyrinth, so he had me return. Yep, so the Guardian, I returned the Guardian came back into play. And then San Marco, yes, I just played, so it's now doubly day.
Double down on day.
Double down on day. I'm going to make sure it stays day. And then San Marco has the ability... See, you think I'd remember all these because they're my cards, but
You're still learning this deck.
I'm still learning this deck. This is true. I have only played it 3 times and a few dozen cold fish. San Marco Basilica also has the ability that you can exhaust it or pay 1 to ready an exhausted character, and that character gains willpower until the end of the phase. Which, again, not the most useful ability against Miskatonic. Unless he starts using the chess master or the chess prodigy. I call him a chess master. He's just that good, I think.
He's the only chess player, therefore he is the master.
Therefore he is the master. The chess prodigy, though, to do terror, which would kind of throw a wrinkle in my style a little bit, although August does have willpower. So
right. Like, I can see you have a lot of cards in here that sort of defend against dominant strategies that just weren't necessarily showing up.
And that's exactly what it was. And Jack of all trades, defend against all these strategies, and then, oh, wait, there's no real way to win the game.
Jack of all trades, winner of none?
Exactly. Jack of all trades, winner of none.
That won't fit on a title card.
We'll make it. We'll call it...
What's this Wii stuff?
Well, yeah, you'll make it. Well, I'll come up with a way to write it so that it fits, and you'll write it on there and make it fit. So it'd be JOTWON.
Well then, that's perfectly clear.
Actually, it'd be JOAT. I'm really not that good at this.
Mm-hmm. So, and one thing I'm realizing about Rod's deck is he doesn't have support destruction.
He doesn't have support destruction.
Miskatonic's kind of notorious for not having that, now that I think about it.
But as the Rush faction...
Yeah, do they need to be destroying support?
You're supposed to just run by it.
They just sort of barf out more characters. But, I mean, there are neutral cards to sort of stopgap. Like, I've been in situation... I think it was the draft at Black Moon a couple months ago where I was like, I need some support destruction. Here's political demonstration.
Yeah.
Which is hard, because you have to win combat.
Yeah, you have to win combat to use it. That's why it's neutral, too.
Right.
Rod is having trouble deciding what he's going to do, I think mainly because of August Lindquist.
August is a very powerful deterrent.
He is a very powerful deterrent, and I actually have small price to pay in my deck as well, which you wound a character to wound another character, and if I wound August, then I just go, oh, nope, success token, and I can have my opponent drive one of his characters insane and wound one of his characters. So it's a strategy that pretty much everybody came up with when they first saw August Lindquist. They're like, we should play that with small price to pay. But and I never actually get it off in this game. But it's a very interesting strategy because, I mean, if anything, you can kill the character that they made insane.
Because you can go from a 1-for-1 trade to a 2-for-none.
Exactly. And
that's Ipatak.
That's Ipatak, and now I've got the issue of he can copy August's ability.
Yep. And from what I remember of peeking, that happens a couple times.
It does. That's going to happen a couple times. We actually run through a series of it happening, I think, twice in a row, where I wound something, he goes to wound August, and I then put the third success token on. I'm not entirely sure. But as I only played 3 games with this, I'm pretty sure that was against Rod.
Now, I like the Silver Twilight faction a lot. I like that they're getting more cards in the boxes and that they're significantly more powerful than previous Silver Twilight cards. But a card like August, I almost feel like it needs a limiter on it. Like, Andrew Chapman isn't just put a token on Andrew, but discard a card.
Right. I think the big thing with him is that, Andrew Chapman's also obviously faded as well. Not being able to put relic cards on him actually kind of does keep him from being too crazy.
But how many relic attachments are people playing right now?
Well, they basically put that on there so people wouldn't put a Kopesh on him and go
right,
crazy.
Absolutely. I'm just saying that is the one attachment relic people are playing at all.
This is true, but it keeps and I suppose it works as a defense more because you can't play Stingy and Eye on him or Guzang, right? You can't steal him.
That's true.
In that sense, so that's interesting, but I don't know. Honestly, I think the 3 casting cost, and his, I mean, he doesn't have a bad run of stats. He's basically got one of each. He doesn't have terror, but he's got willpower. And the faded 3, I mean, combat's so situational.
And he's all 3s, like 3 skill, 3 icons.
I do believe he's 3 skill, yes.
I mean, that's like you were saying in the 3 cost sweet spot. That is like the ideal setup: a 3 cost character with 3 skill, 3 icons of some configuration.
He is actually 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So he's 3 cost. He has a combat, an arcane, and an investigation. So there's his 3 things. He's got 3 skill. He's faded 3. I wouldn't be surprised if he's card number like 3 in the set or something crazy like that.
That would be very fitting if it were, or some multiple of 3, like 36 or 48.
Yeah, or something like that. I thought there were numbers in the cards. It told me what number they were.
Yeah, it's in the middle on the right.
Middle on the right. No, see, honestly, it just says licensed.
May I see?
Copyright 2004 Fantasy Flight Games.
49.
Where did you see 49? Oh, up on the top.
Yeah, the middle.
Middle. Yeah, I was looking in the middle of the bottom.
This is fascinating conversation while a game is being played. Rod's going just throwing a whole horde of people at a story again.
He is throwing a whole horde of people at a story, and he's banking on the fact that maybe I won't throw August at the story. I'm keeping my Guardian back for reasons unknown. And I'm letting Carl and August go forward.
And I mean, they're a nice set of characters by themselves to go contend at a story.
They are, actually.
I can't make out that third character on Rod's side. I see an ethnologist. I see Cookie.
And
maybe it's the Prodigy?
It's the chess Prodigy, yeah. As Rod lifts his arm and blocks the light, you can see it suddenly.
Thanks, Rod. He's so thoughtful.
Appreciate that. He's checking out my Hermetic Seal, which has the ability for me to return it to my hand to stop an ability of a card that just came into play.
Yeah, which is sadly very, very, very situational.
Yes, but very, very, very useful when I'm playing against explorers.
Mm-hmm. I'd be happier, though, if it were worded so that it worked against events.
It would be nice. All right, so he chose Terror for the chess Prodigy. Mm-hmm. So I have made Carl go insane.
And then you're like, come on, wound me.
Yeah, come on, wound me. I'm like, all right, who am I going to wound? And so there's my success token. Mm-hmm. And, yep, we got to get rid of the chess Prodigy.
Prodigy's got to go.
Yep. And now he's going to use Ipatak to kill Carl.
Mm-hmm. And Ipatak's just exhaust?
Yep, exhaust and copy the ability.
Okay.
I think that's for the investigation. And that's for skill, and he was trying to put one on there for being unopposed, but he wasn't unopposed.
Yep. Like, hang on there, friend. Now, with... And
he's chosen his character to straighten. Okay.
Now, having played August a couple times, did you ever get to drive him insane to take the tokens off?
I did not, no.
I think that's kind of a ganky trick.
I didn't even know I could do that, in all honesty. Until
tokens fall off when he goes insane.
Wow.
Or so I've read. I may be misremembering, but I believe that's the case.
If that's the case, then must play deck slightly differently. Jeez. All right, so the local sheriff is being used again. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. And here we have an ancient one. Nyarlathotep has just entered the play area.
It might be the ancient... No, sorry, you have Aaron War. I was about to say he's the ancient one of the day.
Yeah, I have Aaron War. I have Iod in this deck.
Mm.
I went ancient one heavy on the neutral ancient ones. Mm-hmm. Nyarlathotep, for those of you who don't know, is the one restricted card in my deck. He is the Black Pharaoh. He costs 4. He's got 4 skill, 1 of each icon. He's villainous, has toughness +2. And during the resource phase, if an opponent wishes to attach a resource to a domain, they must choose the card they're going to resource at random from their hand. They get to choose which domain they're going to put it on first, and then shuffle up the cards in their hand, and I pick the card, and that's the one that gets resourced. Mm-hmm. There were a couple times, it wasn't in this game, I don't believe, but it was another game where somebody was trying to get up to enough to pay for a card, and miraculously 3 times in a row I picked the card they were trying to get up to. And managed to resource it. So
that was very thoughtful of you.
I try, you know. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they're going for. But it's not quite as dangerous against a mono deck as it is against a dual faction deck.
Right.
Because you start not getting your balance that you want on your resources in a dual faction deck against him.
Yeah.
But the toughness +2 is definitely nice. And like I said, 1 of each icon, so he's a solid ancient one. Mm-hmm. And restricted for a reason, because proper hand, I can get him out turn 1 in this deck, which is just brutal.
So meaning like resource a veteran monster hunter, resource a sheriff.
Yeah, resource a veteran monster hunter, start my turn, resource the sheriff, drag both of them off, and play Nyarlathotep, which is pretty brutal. I suppose the ultimate thing to do would be to have 2 local sheriffs and then get them both back with the other two resources I have and just play Nyarlathotep on my first turn.
And there it goes. Here it begins.
And it begins, yes.
And now even though Rod's playing a mono faction deck, it's still useful to be disrupting his hand.
Exactly. Maybe this is the card you wanted to play. Maybe this is a card you need right now.
Mm-hmm. But he's also drawing cards so reliably that
right.
The odds of drawing the card he wanted to play are dropping.
Right.
Because it's like 1 in 8, 1 in 10. Sometimes, maybe not right now, but
not right now. But it's still a nice thing. And sometimes you can get multiples of a card, or the beginning of the game when you're resourcing, you don't know what you're playing against. You're like, oh, I've got 2 more of this card in the deck. I'll draw one of them and got it in your hand, and suddenly it's being forced to be resourced.
Mm-hmm. It's like seeing things milled off the top of your deck. It was like, I needed that.
Exactly. All right, that's Anthony? No.
Andrew.
Andrew, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm horrible with names.
Andrew's another card where he seems like a great thing. I'd love to have it on the table. Never gotten to use it.
Yeah, with Andrew on the table, I tend to see more jokes being told between the two players, at least when I'm playing against Andrew, about him jumping in front of people and saving them.
I had never thought of it that way, but I can totally see it.
Yeah, I hope I don't go through the hand motions of actually making that joke on camera. But I know I definitely made the joke a couple times during the game.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Rod thinking, actually.
Yeah. We've all have our ticks.
Yep.
And I was just thinking, with Ipetak on the table, does that mean that Andrew can cancel the effect that's hurting someone while Ipetak is busy cloning it?
I think so.
Like, if Andrew cancels it, does that stop Ipetak from having something to copy? I don't know the speed of what Ipetak works at. If it's a response, it may not be there.
I'm guessing it's a response, so I think it's something that just happened. I think it's kind of this just affected something.
But I guess it goes back to the definition of cancellation.
Right.
And then I was reading up on it in another context, and apparently cancellation stops the bad thing from happening, but the effect is still considered to happen.
Gotcha.
So other things can happen, but it was in a different context. I wish this game had a glossary.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different descriptions of what may happen. There's sacrifice, there's destroy, there's remove from play. There's lean over the table and examine a card.
That's right.
So we know one of those characters is August.
Yeah, the other one's Nyarlathotep.
Okay.
It's August and Nyarlathotep that are going there because I don't have to worry about... Well, I wouldn't have to worry about Insanity because neither one of them could go insane, but with no Tress Prodigy on the board, I really don't have to worry about it.
But does he have willpower?
I do believe Cookie gives... Not Cookie, yeah, that's Cookie, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Cookie's granting willpower.
Yeah, I do believe Cookie grants willpower.
But just to explorers. No, sorry, Cookie grants fast.
Oh, Cookie grants fast. Then I do not know. I just know maybe the other explorer he's got out there? I don't know. But I do know that I wounded August instead of wounding him, put the success token and targeted Cookie. Then he used Ipetak to target, to have me wound somebody. Mm-hmm. And he chose Nyarlathotep as the wound source for that.
That is Nyarlathotep's. And Ipetak is kind of a useful thing to be using against Nyarlathotep because it's going to be a repeatable wounding effect.
Right, exactly. And Nyarlathotep's got the toughness +2, so to really get him off the board with damage, it's going to take a bit.
Right. Which is fair. He is an ancient one.
He is an ancient one.
The most human of them, in some ways.
Yeah, well.
I mean, well, he deliberately takes human form. The other ones don't.
Right.
I've always sort of gotten the impression that he served as an interface in some ways but that implies that they want to the Ancient Ones care enough to interface with humans.
Sometimes you just need those cultists to sacrifice themselves.
They kind of do. I mean, my read of the Ancient Ones is they're largely unaware of what cultists are doing. Cultists just are so self-destructive, they latch on to a belief system that enables their self-destruction.
Fair enough. I'm not entirely sure what I just resourced there.
Silver.
I see that.
We're all very secretive about what we resource.
We are all very secretive about what we resource.
And is that Iod or Air Noir? It's neutral.
Claret Knight?
I never got to play the Claret Knight. That was the addition I made to my deck that day.
Let's see. That's a 3 cost, 1 skill. That's got to be the Claret Knight.
Mm-hmm. Which blew my mind when I finally realized it. 3 cost, 3 or 4 icons, 1 skill.
Yep. 3 cost, 4 icons, 1 skill. Actually, one of the few cards I put in here because I'm just like, okay, this is a good card. Hey, that's Arcane Translation. Yep, that should be going to the bottom of his deck.
Okay. Yep, you're right.
No, but the Claret Knight, actually, I put him in here because he's a solid card. Confusing as all be, because his immunity is to triggered effects.
That target him.
Right. So you spend a lot of time, you can end up spending a lot of time debating whether the Claret Knight is affected by something or not.
Right, like, I'm told he's immune to the Plague Stone.
Right.
So he's immune to triggered effects that target all characters.
Right.
But it implies that he is not immune to triggered effects that target the player.
Right, but then there's some debate as to whether he's immune to triggered effects that target the player then targets a character, such as the 3 bells.
So then what effects are left that he is not immune to?
See, and that's the big thing. It's like, okay, what is he not affected by? He can be made day or night. I honestly don't know. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a nice idea. It's just there's so many exceptions.
Right. Why say triggered effects? Why not just say effects?
Because then even passive effects he'd be immune to those.
He'd be immune to those, right? And he's you can still put attachments on him and various things like that. So, but one of the other cards that I play in this deck is Iod. He's the newest of the Ancient Ones.
The cheapest.
The cheapest of the Ancient Ones as well. He only costs 3, and he causes characters with printed skill 2 or lower to cost 1 more to play. Which kind of makes him counterintuitive to the Claret Knight, as the Claret Knight already costs a nice hefty chunk and then only has the 1 skill. Mm-hmm. So the Claret Knight actually kind of works against what I want to be happening in the deck, which means one of the first revisions I'm probably going to make is to pull the Claret Knight out.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a candidate in mind to replace him?
I don't. I'm kind of holding out to see what's kind of come up in the next box set. Shub Niggurath box set.
Is it unreasonable that I want the Thousand Young box set to include a way to have all the avatars of Nyarlathotep in a deck?
No, I think that's exactly what that box set needs to do.
Because it seems like every faction's getting an avatar.
Right. Well, and that's kind of why I'm Avatar of Nyarlathotep, and I'm kind of going, all right, let's see what that's going to give me to play with here, especially if every faction gets one.
Now, am I wrong, or have you guys been contending over this one single story?
No, I do believe Rod has won.
But at least that position on the board.
That position on the board is the only one we've been contending under. I'm playing a very defensive game because I've just started playing this deck for the first time and kind of realized that I don't have much for an offensive push in it.
Mm-hmm. So I see Guardian of Dawn, I see the Claret Knight, I see August, I see Nyarlathotep.
Yep.
And that's
my suite of characters.
Yeah, I was going to say, that is your full complement.
That is my full complement. As it's his turn, who cares if I do everybody? They're all going to strain.
Right. Because at this point, we have probably noted that Rod is not playing anything that prevents refreshing.
Right. And in play, I have San Marco. I've obviously returned a Hermetic Seal to stop something at some point in time. Mm-hmm. And now there's a lot of deciding going on.
Yeah, this is. I mean, you're playing a defensive game, and Ron is a defensive player naturally, so there's a lot of calculating and recalculating.
There's a lot of counting of icons.
Mm-hmm. And in fairness, it is a criticism of the game overall. Is there's a lot of counting and sort of basic addition.
Yeah. I almost want to get, like, spin down dice.
Spin down.
Yeah, the 20-sided spin down dice. Instead of doing, like 20 and 1 opposite,
Oh.
it goes 20, 19, 18, 17, spins down to 1.
I see.
And just get one for each icon and just set it up next to the board and just be like, tick, 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 tick. This is how many I have at that.
Mm-hmm.
This is how many I have at the table. It'd be complicated after a while, but.
Yeah.
Although I do have to admit, 20-sided dice with the 1 or the 20 being each of the icons would be kind of cool.
And that would be, and now I don't necessarily agree with this, but apparently there are some rulings out of Fantasy Flight, at least tied to Netrunner, about what people are and are not allowed to track with devices.
Oh, geez.
Like, you're not supposed to be taking notes on where you see cards. You have to remember.
Well, that makes sense with Netrunner, I suppose.
But I'm also wondering, does that include, like, additional counting devices?
That's true. I mean, the having to remember where things are is kind of with Netrunner is kind of in the spirit of the game.
Right.
I feel. I'm going all out over here.
You really want to play something.
There's a lot of resources for me to put on anything in this deck.
Do you have the foundation in this deck?
I do not, no.
Okay.
I'm guessing this is going to be Ernoir, because that was a local sheriff.
Ah.
And that's the only thing that cost 5 in this deck, so that was the only reason I would have to go up that high.
Mm-hmm.
So Ernoir is a Death and Entropy manifest, is his subtitle. He is another ancient one. And he has the ability that at the beginning of each turn, you have to... at the beginning of each player's turn, that player must wound a character he controls or drain one of his domains. Yeah, another domain tax going on. Or when I have August out, it's a good way for me to wound August to then in turn wound one of my opponent's characters.
That's mean.
It is pretty mean. Ernoir also cannot have his text box cannot be blanked or treated as if it was blank. He's invulnerable fast. Has 2 terror, 2 combat, and 1 investigation, or 1 arcane, excuse me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those ancient ones with investigation.
It's funny that they...
I think Naruto-Tep's the only one.
He's the only one who takes an interest.
Yeah, well, he's the only one who becomes human enough to actually,
Right, to even understand what the hell
he's investigating,
the ants are doing. Right. It's funny that there are so few characters that... specify they cannot be blanked, and then they really started developing the whole blanking thing.
Right.
Like Ernoir came out a box before Frozen Time, which I think of as the archetypal blank card.
Yep. In this case, I have sent my lowly Guardian of the Dawn into battle.
And just bounced with the Historian, I think.
She actually killed a student first.
Oh, very good.
Students should not get in the way of Guardians.
No. Guardian does not discriminate to get by age.
That's right. Especially when it's daytime. Because there's seals and buildings in play.
Seals and whales and manatee.
Seals and whales and manatees.
I love the Hermetic Seal Guardian play.
Yes. And as you can see, actually, I've got a very heavy neutral going on. And that's an infirmary he just played. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go on record right now saying that's quite possibly one of my least favorite cards in the game right now.
It's really frustrating. That's why when I played against this deck, I took it out immediately. There was no reason to. I just took it out. Yeah.
I wanted to take it out. I have torched the joints in here as a way to take out support cards as well as to take out resources. You think I could draw one? Yeah. You're going to be very frustrated about the fact that I don't draw one for a while here.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you have a while to go.
This is true.
Spoilers, everybody who can see how long the runtime on this episode is.
Yeah. Congrats on sticking with us so far.
If you're watching on VCam, you'll have to double back to YouTube to see the rest. So much deliberation in this game.
There is so much deliberation. If I'm folding my arms up on the table, then I'm thinking hard enough that I'm feeling the weight of it on my head.
But at least you're leaning forward and you're engaged. It's not like the
Right.
games where somebody's just leaned back and you can't even see them.
Right.
Because they're just, steamroll me, go ahead.
So that's my third fate counter going on August because of Ernwar in this case. And I'm going to use it to injure one of his characters, and he's going to Ipecac me. Ipecac, not Ipecac. I always want to call it like Ipecac.
Now,
it just spews things back out at me, okay?
Right, and as long as he's not using Ipecac to hurt August, you can't double down.
Right, I can't double down.
Yep.
And since August was already going to be getting put on the bottom of the deck,
Yep.
as soon as that third fate counter hit. So now I'm debating, do I... I think at this point in time I realized I can't actually hurt the Claret Knight with this because it's a triggered ability. So I think I have to put a second wound token on Nyarlathotep or kill my Guardian of the Dawn. And I went with Nyarlathotep.
Right, because he's duplicating Ernwar's effect?
No, he duplicated August's effect, which is...
But doesn't he choose the target of the new effect?
I think it just copies the effect. I don't know if he chooses or not.
Okay.
We were playing it that I got to choose, so...
Okay. That's fine.
Or maybe he was choosing, and I was like, well, you can't choose the Claret Knight, and you can't choose Ernwar. You can either kill my Guardian of the Dawn or Nyarlathotep.
Right. And he's like, no, Nyarlathotep all the way.
Yeah, I'll wound Nyarlathotep. That's honestly probably what happened.
Man, if only this recording technology could somehow capture sound.
Sound? What's the sound you speak of?
No, it's just a crazy, wild idea. And having listened to a little bit of the audio, it is very different from the way when you and I play, because Black Moon, you wouldn't think it to look from this video of the Lunar Lounge, but Black Moon Games was very busy that day. People were coming and going. There was a Magic tournament in the big room. And you could hear the door chiming and the store owner Tony talking.
So I definitely played August Lundquist. That's the card up at the top. The card down at the bottom that's being absurdly blocked by shininess could be...
What? What could it be?
I think it's a church operative.
I think you're right. No, it's hired muscle.
Is it hired muscle? Okay, it was either hired muscle or a church operative.
I can see the way he's clenching his fists.
Good deal. So it's hired muscle. Hired muscle is in there solely as a source of toughness and something that I can resource. That is definitely a card that would get replaced relatively fast. Honestly, I think what the hired muscle is waiting to get replaced is I only own 2 base sets. And a third base set would give me a third small price to pay and a third torch the joint. And I do believe I only have 2 hired muscle in the deck, and they would come out for those 2 cards.
What would be your character count after taking them out?
Nothing that I would have to be all that worried about, because I basically never expected to play them.
I see.
They were pretty much a resource thing, and if I do play them, then they've got toughness and lots of combat icons, so...
I think when it comes to agency muscle, I almost always want to have undercover security before almost any other 2-drop.
Yeah, probably, and I think hired muscle is like 3. Honestly, don't know why I chose it over other things. I think probably availability was a huge part of it.
Yeah, undercover security also has 2 steadfast, which could be problematic with your high neutrality.
Yes, it could.
Curse your neutral soul.
I really, really, really thought about trying to build a straight neutral deck.
There's ample cards to fill out 50 slots.
There are ample cards to fill out 50 slots, but to have an actual workable strategy...
It's mostly conspiracies.
Yeah, well, even taking conspiracies out of it, there's actually a lot of neutral cards. I could do it, but it's... A lot of them are support to other forms of things, so...
Because they're meant to be applicable to multiple factions.
Exactly.
I've often felt the card pool is kind of glutted with neutral cards.
as I separate all my cards into separate boxes based on faction, and I have a neutral box, I came to that conclusion after I did a lot of the Dreamlands. I did Dreamlands and Terror and Venice. I sleeved most of those at once and sorted them into their appropriate places, and I had this huge neutral pile because, Zoogs.
Yep.
So...
I mean, one of the great things about the Silver Twilight faction is they reduced the number of neutrals floating around.
They did. This is true.
The number of cards in the pack didn't change, and then just fewer of them were neutral.
Zoogs for the win.
So you're going to build a Zoog deck next?
I thought about building a Zoog Zoo deck. And yes, that is exactly what I would call it.
Because there's a couple out non-neutral Zoogs.
There are non-neutral Zoogs?
Or there might be one. It's like Experiment 613B.
Oh, yes, that's right.
But I don't think it's
I
not
would say, I know
traded
there's a
as
non-Zoog Zoog.
Right. But the Experiment is also not considered to be a Zoog.
Gotcha.
So
I wonder if those have been errated. I haven't looked.
It really ought to be.
I know the non-Gug Gug has been errated, and we've talked about this in previous episodes about the non-Gug Gug. He's been errated to be a Gug.
He's a red Gug, right?
He is a red Gug, yes. And there's going to be, according to the preview articles for the 1,000 Young box set, there's going to be another red Gug.
Mm-hmm. So it's suggesting yet another broken red-purple combination.
Yes.
Red and purple has sort of developed a reputation for being the most inherently powerful matchup.
Yes. Well, you've got insane amounts of support destruction and insane amount of deck manipulation. Mm-hmm. What do you expect?
Just saying, so many world championships were won by red and purple.
I think if there is a seasoned Call of Cthulhu player out there, I think they should take a look at my deck that I'm playing, fix it, and take it and win worlds with it.
So you in 3 months?
No, that's just not happening. I don't have the time to travel to get to the championships.
Minnesota in the middle of November?
Minnesota in the middle of November. Let me think about that. It can't be that much worse than where I live currently in the middle of November.
It's flatter and windier, I think.
Flatter and windier. Yeah, but they have bigger trees.
Do they? I thought it was the prairie.
There's, well, I suppose it depends on where in Minnesota. It is the land of 1,000 lakes. And from what I've heard, the land of 10 billion mosquitoes because of that.
Right.
But November, so...
in their three-week summer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Rod, what are you doing?
He's got a board full of stuff is what he's got.
Just resetting, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's got so many characters. You guys are just sort of deadlocked.
We are kind of deadlocked. I mean, you just see how slowly we're going after this one story down at the bottom here now.
Mm-hmm. This is the same one now, right? Since the last time we checked?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can see one story card off.
Yeah, he won that first one way back at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Before I had Nyarlathotep down, I think. When I had to return the Guardian. And since then, it's just been crazy. I was just checking on a timing rule for something. I don't know what.
I never used to be the guy who thought, oh, we should have the FAQ printed out. But after days like this, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess we should have.
There's just characters all over the place.
And he has an infirmary.
Yes, and he's had that infirmary for a little while now, and I still reiterate the point, I cannot stand the infirmary.
It's really frustrating, because it's like Miskatonic, known for having cards in hand. Do they need to get more cards in hand? Yeah,
exactly. The one thing I was hoping I could take advantage of, and I never really got a chance to, was killing an insane character to get around the infirmary.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say?
They lose their faction when they go insane?
They lose their faction when they go insane.
I can never remember what they lose and what they don't.
They retain their name.
Yep.
They lose everything else.
Okay.
So they lose their faction, which is important to note when you're playing against decks that are playing cards that say, as long as you control no non-blah faction cards, if one of those characters on your side of the board goes insane, you suddenly control a non-blah faction character. So,
which Miskatonic has quite a few of.
Yes, Miskatonic does have a few of those, but the killing it so that it's not a Miskatonic character when it's insane in the infirmary to keep it from coming back I was hoping I would get a chance to do that because I have the ability to both drive things insane and wound things, but it never happens.
Because I'm just realizing that with the infirmary, sacrificing alternative historian becomes pretty awesome because you're going to keep drawing cards as you play her back out.
Right, and actually, at the end of this game, I pointed out the fact that I actually should have started doing that earlier, to force him to draw out. We were in such a stalemate lock on the board that having him draw more cards I don't think would have hurt me. And the attrition of holding him, getting him to draw more cards in a deck where he already draws a lot of cards would have benefited me. I don't know if it would have made a difference in the end, but it's definitely something a strategy I should have thought of while I was playing.
I mean, generally you don't think about it. It's just, the deck is the deck, and there's no way you're going to get to the bottom of it.
Right, unless you're playing against somebody who's, purposely trying to do that to you.
But between this and an earlier game where the fourth player in the tournament, Brad, was refilling his deck with 2 dwellers from dwellers below every turn.
Yep.
There was some crazy end of deck shenanigans happening that day. And then you had made the point that if Brad had been using the dwellers from below to put his own cards back in the deck,
he'd have been putting more cards on the bottom of his deck.
Yep. But he would have been sacrificing the things that were keeping the other player in check.
Correct.
Because he had Ravagers from below that were just keeping Rod from doing anything.
Yes.
In this case, Rod's gone practically all in.
Yeah, everything but the historian.
Yeah. See, so in this raid, he's got 2 characters which are so easy to confuse: the Arctic Ethnologist, and I think the Expert Cartographer.
Ah, yes, that would be that other card.
I think that's the one that everybody wishes was an Explorer but came out too early.
Yep.
Because it sounds like it ought to be.
Yeah. We're not doing the... that was definitely an icon count that was just happening.
Yep. At least there's no Derby Hall. Counting icons when Derby Hall's in play drives me up the wall.
I can imagine. And now, of course, I'm sitting here looking at my board going, okay, what do I got? What do I got? What do I got?
The one thing, maybe you have this and it just hasn't popped up yet, but I'm surprised you don't have a board reset card.
I don't. I thought about it. If I was smart, I would have put in like Plague Stone or something along those lines to reset the board. But I chose not to for some insanely strange reason. Okay, so I have used San Marco Basilica to straighten the Claret Knight. No.
Is he allowed to be straightened by the
Not the Claret Knight. That's Air Noir.
Okay.
That I straightened. Sorry. You're correct. I would not be able to straighten the Claret Knight. So that was Air Noir that I straightened. And then I just played a Descendant of Eberlon, which is a World Champion designed card. Yay for World Champions.
Known informally as Jim.
Known informally as Jim. I did not know this.
Because that is the name of the player who designed him.
By Jim Black. Yes, fair enough. The 2007 World Champion winner.
Back in the CCG days, maybe.
Yes. The Descendant is, even though you can't see the gigantic black dot in front of his name, he is unique. He's been errated to that. He costs 3, has 2 combat, 1 arcane, and 1 investigation. Willpower and fast. 3 skill. And you can discard 2 of your success tokens from a story, which they've errated all the discard success tokens at this point in time, I do believe, to read that way. To put him into play from your hand, which is what I did. Or you can put him into your hand from your discard pile, doing the same thing, removing 2 success tokens. Right. He's transient, which is why he has that discard to hand ability. Neutral transient.
And he's just a great drop all around.
Right, and he's just a great drop all around. And he does return to your hand if you cheat him into play like I just did by removing the 2 tokens at the end of the phase. So,
but that was not enough to stop Rod from winning the card.
It was not enough to stop Rod from winning the card, no.
So now we're at 2-1, 2-0?
2-0.
2-0.
Yes, folks, that's right. You just spent 54 minutes watching us get to 2-0.
It was a hard-fought 2-0. And anybody watching on YouTube can see very clearly how much time is remaining. So go get a drink.
Yeah. Get two. So I have wounded somebody. No, that's a success token on August from Ernoir. Okay. And Harlothotep is officially dead.
Mm-hmm. The Black Pharaoh is dead. Long live the Black Pharaoh.
That's right. The Black Pharaoh is dead.
Now who's that blue? Oh, that's the hired muscle. Very good.
Yeah, that's the hired muscle. He's now moved around.
The blue characters did not seem to have a high impact on this game.
They don't. It's actually more for the support, for the local share. Well, it's for the transient. Mm-hmm. Honestly, Agency has the most transient cards.
You did it all for the transients?
I did it all for the transients. That's right. Another good, solid idea name for the deck.
Also, won't fit.
All right, what's my character limit here?
You get like 4 words tops.
4 words tops?
Rebirth of the Cult was a squeeze. Let's put it that way.
All right, so supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. That's 1 word.
How about Dick Punch?
No, I don't think that's a good name for the deck.
But it fits.
This is true, it does fit.
It fits.
Another Nyarlathotep has just entered play.
Of course, you've always got one up your sleeve.
That's right.
The Crawling
Except
Chaos.
you can't see my sleeves.
No.
I'm that good.
Well, you're wearing flesh-colored sleeves, I believe.
Oh, flesh-colored sleeves, right. I put that brown t-shirt on over it. Just to confuse our viewers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Crawling Chaos will always return. That's Nyarlathotep's whole gimmick.
Yes. I do have to say, I love my playmat. I swear it's more obnoxious in person than it is on the camera.
The camera is not quite conveying the vibrancy of it.
It is not. It's actually mellow on the camera. It's kind of nice.
it's the extreme between the pink Cthulhu's and the matte and the orange that the color chip is just shorting out.
Pink Cthulhu! I encourage everybody to get their own colored Cthulhu's.
As soon as you upload the design to Thingiverse.
This is true. I should... Valid point.
Mm-hmm. There's a surprising mix of Cthulhu LCG stuff showing up on Thingiverse. Some people have done like faction-specific drain markers, things like that.
Faction-specific drain marker. I'd like to have little tiny Shub-Nigguraths and Hasturs and Yogg-Sagoths. Mm-hmm. Really, I'd like to have little tiny miniatures of all the ancient ones. I think that would be kind of fun.
You know, Fantasy Flight has just the line of miniatures for you.
Do they really?
I don't know if they've done the ancient ones now that I've said it out loud.
Huh.
I know they were doing like the Arkham Horror characters and monsters.
Fair enough.
I don't know if they did ancient ones, because they don't really show up till the end of the game.
Right, well, and ancient ones would... it'd be fun, but man, there's some really funky looking ones out there.
What am I thinking? This is what Cthulhu Wars is for.
Oh, this is true.
You only have to buy 3 copies of that to have enough domain markers.
Oh, this is true.
3 copies of
$3
a $200 game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me just let me check my bank account real quick. Dang. I don't have $600 lying around.
So, this game is going to go on, and we're going to keep commenting on it. If anybody's watching on VCam, you should go to youtube.com/deckedshow and look for episode 13 so you can see the rest of it, because we're about to wrap. This episode is about to wrap, and you can catch the rest there. Thanks for tuning in. While you're on youtube.com, you should subscribe to the show, leave a comment, let us know what you think, all that fun stuff. But now, for everybody watching on YouTube, the game's going to continue.
That's right. I feel like a sports announcer. I know you're not a sports person, but they do this. You'll be watching a game, and it's kind of the opposite, actually. Usually they're like, and everybody who is watching the game out on the West Coast, welcome to this game that's run into the 19th inning.
It's just like, or it's not just like, but it reminds me of as when a game is wrapping up, they start suggesting the other games you should watch.
Right.
It's like, really? One game wasn't enough? Somebody wants to watch the half of another one?
That's very true.
Apparently. Different from board games, because you don't really get to jump into a game halfway through. Although I have done that in conventions. I sat down to play I got dragged into an Elder Sign demo at PAX East one year, didn't actually take a turn because the game ended just before it got to my turn. Because they'd been playing for however long, and they needed someone to fill in. So I sat down, and then, we're done.
Wow. Go play another game now. Okay.
Does someone want to teach me this one? No? Okay.
Okay.
Well, I didn't want to give you any money. That's fine.
We've decided to excite our viewers by going after a story in a different position.
Moving our way up the board.
That's right.
Or it just means that now suddenly that story is less odious to trigger than the one that's on the table that we can't identify.
Yes. Well, that was a wound token placed. Somebody's got toughness.
Mm-hmm. I don't see Brett, so she's not granting Explorer's toughness.
No, that's the cartographer.
I guess he's get some toughness.
I guess he's just naturally tough.
We really should get Rod in here to do this.
We should, but it's about an hour too late.
And it's a long commute for him.
It is a very long commute for him. Let's just say I can walk here faster than he can get here.
Yes, that is absolutely 100% true.
All right. That was I got a success token.
Congratulations.
Yay.
It's like, no, this one. Over here. This
This
one.
one. Look at my support cards that you should be destroying.
If only you had a way.
If only I could draw the right cards. That's one thing that's really odd about this deck. I'm not really drawing a lot of cards, but I constantly have cards in hand because of the cycling of the, in particular, the local sheriff.
Right. Did you ever feel constrained by making sure you were able to pay for the sheriff, like it was keeping you from doing other stuff?
No, honestly, as you can see, I've pretty much loaded up on one thing over here, one domain.
So you're going for like one power play every turn?
Yeah, it really kind of works out to one power play every turn. Although either of those other two, although the one that's currently drained up in the top right there, that one is good because I can throw a sheriff on it or something, a transient card, and be able to play any of the 3-drop cards from Silver Twilight that I have in the deck.
I had not considered that math, but you're right.
Right. It's very, and when you're playing against it, it's hard to remember that. It's like, okay, wait, he can just drop a 3-drop from there and still drop a ancient one off the center pile. Mm-hmm. So.
And then, so in the meantime, Rod's throwing out a new explorer, William Webb, who can place success tokens on any story after he's placed one. Although I'm not certain if it's just the investigation struggle or on any instance of placing a token.
Right. All right. Ernoir's ability is going off. I'm August Lundquisting, and he used the infirmary to return his card that I was killing to his hand.
Mm-hmm. Now, at this point, is Erdwar's ability just injuring you more than it's injuring Rod?
I mean, he's got to replay these characters every turn.
Right, but he's still he gets to replay, and you get wounded.
Instead of not getting wounded, I'm using a fate token, so I'm basically returning 2 cards to his hand to turn because of it.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I think so, but
I'm using.
No, I see what you're describing. I'm still not clear on what Ipotech actually does.
Well, he's copying the ability. He's choosing what to target. Mm-hmm. He just chose to target August Lundquist.
So why did he choose August?
Because that faded me out. So I'd start having to actually wound my other characters with Ernoir's ability or drain a domain. Mm-hmm. So August is now on the bottom of the deck. I then chose another one of his characters that had toughness and already taken 1 wound, which he then promptly returned to his hand because of the infirmary. Mm-hmm. The infirmary needs to activate to be used. It needs to be exhausted to use.
Yeah, an exhaust or a discard a card.
Something, yeah. Sacrifice another character. That one really wouldn't work. But
discard a success token.
Discard a success token, right. Something.
Mm-hmm. I mean, these are all resources that Miskatonic generally has access to.
Pay 1, I'd be okay with.
I have a hard time with those pay 1 abilities because it feels like hamstringing yourself even further in a game where you're generally only having 3 paid plays over the course of 2 turns.
Right, this is true. That is a local sheriff actually coming into play.
Amazing.
Is that what that was?
That's a bold move. I believe it is.
It is. I can see the gun. Yep. There's a local sheriff in play.
Now, have you refreshed anybody with San Marco this entire time?
Yes, I refreshed Ur earlier using it, and I think I refreshed a Guardian of the Dawn earlier as well. I could be wrong about that, but I know I refreshed Ur earlier as a defensive mechanism. And I've used the seal a couple times to stop card draw from various explorers. Trust me, I was waiting for Kirby to come out. I was just going to be like, no Kirby.
I don't think Kirby's shown up yet.
He hasn't, and I honestly don't know if Kirby shows up in this game at all. I don't remember playing the game.
Now, do you have Key in the Gate yet?
I do not know.
Because there's a card in there that's really useful against explorers called Prepared Alienist. And basically, when it's in one of the exhaust or ready states, characters cannot enter play through triggered effects.
Nice. So it's kind of the other half of Carl Stanford, because Stanford keeps them from having their cost reduced,
Right.
which Ultima Thule is not doing.
Right. It's a put into play through a triggered effect.
Right.
So the alienist would stop it whenever it is ready or exhausted. I can never remember which. I think it's ready.
Right.
Because it's got books.
Brett just came into play on Rod's side.
Good old Brett.
And there's a historian I keep killing.
Draw a card, Rod. Draw a card. No, he's not going to draw.
Is that a have to or a may?
Must.
That's what I thought. Hence my comment earlier about killing that more often and making him draw cards.
That's an impressive lineup.
It is an impressive lineup.
He needs one more story. He has no tokens on the board.
And and he passed his turn.
He does that. And I always assume that, he's been playing card games long enough. He knows when to pass. So
right.
I'm trying to take sort of my lead from him in that. And like figuring out, learning to recognize when I need to be more defensive, because I generally play aggressively. Like I always want to be committing. ABC, always be committing.
Iod! The last of the ancient ones in the deck finally makes an appearance.
If only he had appeared earlier in the game.
Yeah, he really needed to appear earlier in the game. For those of you who don't remember from the beginning of the video when I explained what Iod did, to save you going back and trying to figure it out, Iod cost 3, and he's got toughness of 1, and a terror and a combat icon, and he causes, he's an ancient one, and characters with printed skill of 2 or lower cost 1 more to play. Early on in the game, he can be devastating. First turn, very devastating.
Another ugly play that just didn't get to show up in time.
Exactly. And he has a 3 skill as well. So he costs 3 skill.
Now, have you considered adding any search effects to this, such as they exist?
As in searching for ancient ones and...
Or just, maybe not necessarily searching, but cards that let you skim the top of the deck more readily.
I haven't, if only because this deck was largely predicated on opening hand big first turn, which is another one of its major downfalls. It's, hey, I can really mess with you on the very first turn. Hey, I can do a little bit to screw with you on the second turn. Hey, I'm now going to be playing defensively for the rest of the game.
Guys, I'm still here. Guys.
Anthropology Advisor just came into play over on Rod's side.
That is a lot of investigators.
That is. Well, actually, there's a lot of explorers over there. There's not a lot of investigators, actually.
The historian's an investigator, I believe.
Yeah.
William Webb, I believe. Maybe the expert cartographer.
Yeah. Chapman might be.
He's a scientist for sure.
There's Cookie.
Yep. Cookie, an investigator.
Cookie just came back to hand for some reason.
Well, that's changing his mind. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, because he actually undrained the domain too. I have multiple hermetic seals in play at this point.
I continue to wish. I mean, it's such a cheap and easy day effect. I get why the other effect is so limited. I just continue to wish it were a little more expansive.
All right, there's the hall.
Ah, Derby Hall. So now it's crazy buffing between that and the anthropology advisor.
Yep. There's going to be a lot of counting coming up in a turn or two here, I do believe.
Mm-hmm. So Derby Hall grants investigators investigation based on their skill,
Yes.
or just one flat icon.
No. Investigation based on more investigation.
What do you think Rod's thinking right now, Ray?
I think Rod is counting icons, in all honesty. He's looking at it going, all right, I'm going to do this.
And if Ray does this, I'll do that.
Exactly. He's actually probably looking at more absolutes going, all right, if I commit everything and he commits everything, what's that going to create for a situation?
So first of all, it's not Derby Hall. I can tell you that right off the bat. I've been misremembering the name.
Fair
it's
enough.
the Atwood Science Hall.
Atwood Science Hall. There we go.
Characters you control get +1 skill for every investigation icon.
There we go.
So that means the advisor is granting it the other way around.
Is granting an additional investigation icon to all investigators.
And in cheapening investigators.
Ah, yes, that's right. Apparently that middle story is no longer good enough for anybody.
Nope.
We're going after the one on the bottom.
I guess he feels he doesn't need to race you for one. He would just have a rather preferential effect.
Let's say this is the most of my face we've ever seen
Yes.
on an episode of Decked.
You're clearly engaged.
I'm clearly engaged, and it is now warmer than it was when we did that. I have gotten rid of the beard.
It's not that much warmer. It's still April in Vermont.
It is still April in Vermont, and this past week has been horrendously cold.
Yes, it's a little peek into the magic, even though this episode drops in May.
Yep. Yeah. It's the end of April.
My sense is this is a very atypical kind of game for Cthulhu, where you just have a horde of characters and they're all lined up.
I feel that Rod has very atypical games of Cthulhu. Either that or you and I constantly play atypical games of Cthulhu.
Maybe. I mean, I don't think I generally have a line of 6 or more characters.
Yeah, I mean, our games always seem to go by really quickly. There's not a ton of characters out on the board all the time. Can you imagine what a Plague Stone would do right now?
Mm-hmm.
He'd have a huge hand. Infirmary would send everybody from the Plague Stone back to his hand.
Does Infirmary save from destruction?
I do believe so. I do
don't.
believe it's if a Miskatonic character would go to your discard pile, return it to your hand instead.
Hmm.
Because combat killing is destruction, so it has to be destruction. Taking too many wounds.
Yep, would be destroyed. He placed a single token?
So far, I think we're counting skill now.
Mm-hmm.
Or something.
And this is the point in the game where having a little notepad might be okay.
Yeah. Well, this is a point in the game where having a notepad for the purpose of us going back and providing commentary 3 weeks later.
Mm-hmm. I did try to look ahead at this game, but I was like, well, once I get the idea of the cards, everything will be fine. It's just,
Yeah.
I was not anticipating this. Probably because at this point, Brad and I had wrapped up our game and our for fun game, and I think I was just puttering around the store.
You very well may have been. I know at this point in time, this was the last game of the tournament, I do believe.
Maybe?
Yeah, because I sat up in the top corner for the rest of it. So this was the last game of the tournament, and I think at this point in time, honestly, you can't see it, but I'm pretty sure I really had to go to the bathroom. And I was very conscientious about the fact that we were on camera, so I didn't want to stop the game and get up and go.
That's very thoughtful of you. This was a very long tournament overall. I think the store owner, Tony, was sort of wasn't quite hovering, but at one point he did point it out that the store closed at 6.
Yes, he did. And we made it under the gun.
You got under the gun.
Yes, we made it under the gun.
Yeah, it was just the last. We weren't quite the last people out the door, but we were definitely among the last, and I think he was a little surprised by how long it took.
Yes, so am I.
I mean, I was too, and part of it was that there was a very long pair of teaching games for our fourth player who was brand new to the game and learning it.
Right.
So, which is totally fair. I don't think we anticipated the teaching games going on quite like they did, because they got into that weird corner case we mentioned with Dwellers Below providing cards to be drawn every turn, as opposed to decking out.
I played a Guardian of the Dawn on my last turn. There are wound tokens everywhere because people have toughness.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of your criteria in choosing characters for this deck, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, because you knew Iron War was going to be a concern.
Iron War was going to be a concern, correct.
I was like, there you go.
There you go. Just deal with this, all right? I'm keeping these guys over here.
Yep.
There's 2 anthropology advisors in play.
That's clearly what took so long, was working out the math on 2 anthropology advisors.
And there's 2 Atwood Science Halls in play.
How could there be 2 Atwoods?
I don't think it's unique.
That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, it really doesn't. So basically, between the 2 advisors and the 2 science halls, all investigators are getting 2 more investigation icons and 2 more skill.
Per investigation.
Per investigation. Right. So like 4 more skill and 2 investigation icons just from those 4 cards.
And they've all got icons and skill of their own because they're Miskatonic.
I have done the Middlebury half tap.
Tell us about the Middlebury half tap.
So the Middlebury half tap comes from back many years ago playing Magic when I was first learning. There was a game store in Middlebury, Vermont, and the people who played there had a tendency to, instead of turning their cards completely sideways like Rod has done, to exhaust in this case, they did them like I just did, which is like a quarter turn, which is like a
45 degree?
Yeah, 45-degree turn. It was called the Middlebury half tap.
That's the way I learned to play Magic. I don't think I learned about 90 degrees until much, much later.
Right. I've always called it that since then. It's just one of those things that stuck with me.
Yeah, and I don't know.
And all of that, and he just plays to success. He couldn't win the story.
But I feel like we're coming down to the wire here.
Oh, yeah, we definitely are. At this point in time, I'm basically going, all right, unless I draw something amazing, he's got this.
Mm-hmm. And you still have I know you mentioned earlier, like, working to deck Rod out, but it looks like you both have healthy decks at this point.
We both have healthy decks. If I'd have played it a little differently and used August Lundquist to constantly kill his historian and forcing him to draw the cards.
But he had to remember to draw the cards. We've seen
this is true. This is true. I bet you I would have won the game if he'd have drawn those 2 extra cards.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
There's your torture joint.
Yep.
Joint's been torched.
Yep, I got rid of the infirmary, and here's me complaining. Stupid card didn't come to the very end.
Mm-hmm. I always forget that that Torch the Joint is really doing 2 things.
Yep.
Or your choice of 2 things.
Yeah, and it does have Steadfast, so I do have to be careful of that. But
in your crazy, ridiculous 1/3 neutral deck.
What's really funny, actually, is that the conspiracy I have that you never see me play in this, the Blackwood Initiative, is actually loyal. It costs 2 and it's loyal, but because I can just use a sheriff, because he counts as the 2, so.
Right. Sorry, I'm just recognizing that we're in the wind down. You guys are wrapping up.
We are wrapping up, yep.
So we'd like to thank everybody for watching Decked and hanging in through this whole epic adventure. You should visit youtube.com/deckedshow and subscribe, leave comments, let us know what you think, let us know what games you want us to play. We're here for your amusement.
And tell me what you think of my playmat.
Yeah. Richard, if you like the playmat, like the video.
That's right.
Thanks, everybody.